There have been security scares across Europe in the wake of the Paris terror attacks. 2 international football games have been abandoned over fears they could be targeted by extremists, while a third match went ahead at London's Wembley Stadium but with a heavily armed police presence. A friendly football game between Germany and the Netherlands was cancelled after a suspicious suitcase was discovered inside the stadium. Chancellor Angela Merkel had been scheduled to attend the game to show she would not bow to terrorism. German officials say no explosives were found and no arrests made. However, police say there was concrete evidence that a plan was in place to attack the venue. A second match between Belgium and Spain was also canned over security fears. And joining me now to talk about today's events and the wider terror concerns is Otago University International Relations expert Professor Robert Patman. Good afternoon, Robert.
Good afternoon, Jeff.
With the events we saw today at the German football stadium, they appear to have been a false alarm, but police insist there is a credible threat. What do you make of today's panic?
Well, I think it indicates that Europe, the EU countries, are on high alert. We have to keep in mind that Europe is largely borderless, and this is an entity which encompasses 27 countries and 500 million people. So groups like ISIS would not only have access to France, but they would also, as we've seen with the subsequent inquiries and investigations after the terrorist atrocity on Friday, over the weekend, that they will be looking at Belgium as well.
It's not just football games, is it, Robert? Big name music acts are also cancelling European tours. Do you think this will change how we go to public gatherings?
I think in the short term, but you know, we do have to strike a balance here, Jeff, between maintaining those freedoms and the rule of law and also being vigilant. In other words, we mustn't create an Orwellian state or a garrison state where people's lives, people who go about their business every day, have their lives seriously interrupted. So it is a bit of a balancing act, and we have to get it right. And it's a big challenge, particularly after a terrible event like this, when people are angry and full of emotion.
France say they're now looking for a 9th attack, and now 2 of the Paris government are thought to be on the run. Does it just seem like security services have been playing a game of catch-up here, Robert?
I think the French security services definitely had warnings that something was in the works before the attack on Friday. One of the problems is that ISIS are quite conscious that the British and the Americans and the French can intercept their digital communications. So a lot of the communications, it appears, between the operatives, the ISIS operatives that carried out this attack, was not done digitally, which means that they were relatively blind to the timing of the attack.
And speaking of communications, intelligence officials in the US are hinting that the problem of not being able to track terrorists falls in part on the shoulders of people like Edward Snowden. And they say telecommunication agencies are now less likely to share vital information with investigators. What do you think?
I quite frankly think that's self-serving, and I think it's possibly unfair as well. Snowden never had any problems with targeting terrorists. What he was complaining about was blanket full-take intelligence, which was actually monitoring people, which had nothing to do with terrorism. His argument was that the monitoring was so extensive that it actually missed the terrorist targets.
Professor Robert Patman, thank you very much indeed for your time this afternoon.